So this is Baruch Fleischman here at the Tikkun Elevator Kolo. I want to show you here, last year we were talking about King James, the first of Aragon. But the map itself wants to tell you that Spain was continuously being attacked by the Christians moving southwards, and eventually reconquered all of the area which was Muslim. The Jews originally were deeply involved with the Muslims, and the Muslims used us, as King James did too, and invited Jews from North Africa and other places to come to his kingdom. So one of the main places in that kingdom is right here, where I used to watch the Messi was on the from Argentina was from the team from Barça. They call it Barci or Barci. So Barcelona. So at any rate, this is the area that we're talking about. We've been talking about right here, which was a major area where there was a Jewish kingdom, or Jewish presence, in the kingdom of Christian Aragon. So let's go over here and see what this says as we continue on with this story. About what is the story? Let me see if that's right. I get everybody confused. Jewish communities in Spain and the Reconquest. Now, like we said before, the Reconquest is this dark area here coming down, and eventually is going to take over the entire Iberian Peninsula. Portugal is cut off from Spain, again by mountains and other differences, and Spain is a cut up place. So different places, different kingdoms, different sections are cut up and attacked at different times until we come down to the kingdom of Granada, and eventually is conquered too. And that's the Muslim presence in we will see is going to disappear. Now let's go back to Aragon. The reign of James' son and successor. I think I've got the wrong. Let me get here and also keep the glare down as much as possible. So the reign of King James' son and successor, Peter III, 1276 to 1285. It's an important chapter in the history of the Jews in the kingdom of Aragon. The first Spanish rule to acquiesce to the pressures of Jew haters. He enacted numerous limitations on them. However, he too was compelled to use the services of Jews in carrying out his foreign and domestic policies. Thus we find Moses Al-Constantini, let me try this again, Al-Constantini, I didn't understand, and the Abravalia family of Gerona among his courtiers. Their involvement in state administration and finances, they were CPAs, was reminiscent of the Reconquest period. One of the members of the Abravalia family accompanied Peter on his Sicilian campaign in 1282. During the latter part of his reign, Peter himself actively repressed the Jews, removing them from all positions of influence. His son and successor, Alfonso III, 1285 to 1291, heeded the complaints of the urban nobility against the Jews. Dark clouds were beginning to gather in Aragon, foreboding days of retrogression and deterioration that would end in the persecutions of 1391. Now, the problems with the Jews really happened in the year 1391. It was 100 years later, 1491, 1492, that the Jews were expelled from Spain. So here in 1991, we are leading to this time. The reign of James I in Aragon was contemporary with that of two kings of Castile-Leon, which is a different area. Ferdinand III, the Saint, how about that, 1217 to 1252, and Alonso X, Alonso X, the Wise, 1252 to 1284. During James I's conquest of the Balearic Islands, which took place in the years 1224, 1233, and Valencia, 1238, Fernando III conquered most of the cities of Andalusia, Cordoba in 1236, and Murcia in 1243, thereby opening an outlet to the Mediterranean that severed the Aragonese advance to the south. Thereafter, the military campaigns were Castilian. Haim in 1246, and Seville in 1248. After Alfonso's completion of his father's reign, there followed a truce of about 200 years in the Reconquest. During its final campaigns in the reign of Fernando and Isabella, the way they spread it, Jews did not take part in settling the frontier areas. They were only required to pay a special war tax. Now, it's hard for me to keep track of everything that he said. So, I'm not sure where Cordoba is. So, let's see. Cordoba, this is Ocaña. Okay, here is Villanueva de Cordoba, Cordoba, Jaén. These are all different places that were attacked during this time. And he ended by saying that there was almost a 200-year period, I guess it's from the 1200s to the 1400s, where they didn't continue to fight. They get attacked there, but they stopped. That's what he seemed to be saying. So, meanwhile, the Jews, what was the last line he said? He says, Jews did not take part in settling the frontier areas. Now, what they mean by the frontier areas is recently captured areas where they would bring in new people into those areas that were loyal to the crown they conquered and settle there. Under Alfonso X, known as a lawmaker, continuing the work of Fernando III, a code of laws in the spirit of Roman and canon law was prepared for his country. Called Las Siete Partidas, because of its division into 7 parts, the 7 different parts, it says, it went into effect about the middle of the 14th century. The prime characteristic of the code, which is the 13th, let's say 1350, like that, was in its attempt to organize Spanish society according to the contemporary spirit of Christianity. In the general section of the code, part 7, the regulation regarding modesty of dress applied also to the Jews. The code fixed a maximum rate of interest of 33% for loans extended by Jews to Christians, because I guess if we didn't mention this before, Christianity or Catholicism at any rate, what's the right way to say it? They refused, or they declined, or they ordered, right? I don't know what to say. They didn't charge interest to each other. They're not allowed to charge interest. So you need Jews, because they didn't have enough money, because they had lived lavish lifestyles, which they need Jews to pay for that. So they brought in the Jews, they lent them money, and the interest rates were enormous, but they aren't always repaid either, because they have the crown, they have the police, they have the military, they have whatever they want. So you lent them money, and if you get along with them, then they'll pay you, and if not, well, they pay you when you get. And that's how Jews got into tax farming, which is a different issue altogether. So it established the formula of the Jewish oath, but also forbade breaking into a synagogue. That's nice. In the 14th and 15th centuries, the code served as a basis for legal corroboration, but otherwise had little impact on Jewish life. The code was only imperfectly implemented. In matters of state appointment and the employment of the service of Jewish physicians, Christians were unhappy with the code because it contained a measure of protection for the Jews. However, the Jewish community still had the privileges granted them by Alfonso's predecessors. Alfonso did not restrict the communal autonomy of Castilian Jewry. The Jewish judiciary remained an independent, and Jewish judges dispensed justice according to the laws of the Torah. However, the litigants were allowed right of appeal to the king's tribunal. The king also had the right to appoint a Jew as chief justice, who would be in charge of Jewish judicial matters in any particular community. He was to act as chief justice of appeals at Rome as Rab de la Corte, the court rabbi. So here's a little blurb that he has here at the end. Let's see how we can read it. If we get a little closer to it, maybe, and read it in halves. It says like this: Be advised that is the Kahal of Barcelona, the Kahal of Villa Franca de Penedès, the Kahal of Tarragona, and the Kahal of Mont Blanche maintain a common chest and a common purse for the payment of taxes and imposts levied upon us by the crown. Whenever they wish to pass new regulation concerning the assessment of taxes, either by the tax assessor or by the submission of memorandum, or by individual declaration to meet the requirements of the king, we do not impose our will upon them, even though we are in the majority and the city is supreme in all matters. If we should take action without their counsel, they would not heed us. Sometimes we sent our men to them, and other times their representatives come to us with their resolutions. Only if they fail to do either of these things at our request do we compel them to, by the arm of the government, to come to us or to adopt in their community the measures that are in force in ours. In other places, however, the head community decrees for its dependencies and subjects them to its will. This was written, so apparently I'm not sure that I understood exactly what that meant, but he says, Salam ben Avraham Aderet. And this is one of his answers, a responsa from Y. Beinart, A History of Jews in Christian Spain. This is Baruch Fleischman, and this has been Dr. Haim Beinart, the Tikkun Elevator Call Out.